welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I draw the muzzle on Sabrina's portrait. So what I'm going to do is work my way down towards the muzzle, so I still have a bit of the fur texture to add down here, and then I'll go on to the nostril and the lips and how I finish off the muzzle. So I'm going to go in with my warm grey 6, I think. No, I'm going to go lighter actually. I'm going to go with my warm grey 5 and just continue working down this section here. So you can still see how I build up my black fur as well. So for the first part of this little video is just showing how I'm doing the rest of the fur down the face, and then we'll get to sort of the details in the muzzle area. I thought it'd be nice to show this section as well as the muzzle, but if you want to just skip to the muzzle, then I will put a timestamp in the description for you all as well. So I'm just adding a light base layer of the warm grey 5. It is very dark down on her muzzle. And she also has like a little white snip coming down and then white in this little section here. So I'm just going to cover this little section. I always work in sections. And I'm going to take my time. I don't want to shade it too fast. I want a nice even layer. We also have like a lighter section coming around here. You can just about see my graphite line by here, where there's the darker area, and then this is a lighter. So I'm going to use a warm grey 3 just to shade in this light area by here. So sort of where her nostril comes up by here, and then as it goes there, it's a little lighter. Now I'm going to use my cold grey 6 to start darkening this section. So I'm using little strokes just to build up the fur texture. So just slowly building on top of it. Like I've said in the previous videos, to get it nice and black, we want to add lots of layers rather than just pressing down to go really hard straight away. Making sure my outer lines by here are nice and even and not too messy. And then when we get these lighter sections going from the darker sections, we don't want like a harsh line coming down like this. We want to make sure they blend across to each other, because then it doesn't make the horse look like, I don't know how to explain it. In previous portraits I've done years ago, it would look like there were different odd sections of a horse. You want to make sure it blends together nicely. So now I'm going to go over that with a dark sepia pencil now. So I'm still not using the hard pressure, I'm just going over the top. And still using the same motion of the strokes. But as I get into the lighter area, I'm sort of lifting my pencil off a bit so it sort of gets a lighter tone rather than a darker tone. And I'm making sure I'm following the fur direction in the correct direction as well. So we're just continually working on top of each other, on top of all the different layers. And I'm making sure this outer area by here is nice and dark because this is in shadow. And it sort of helps give it the three-dimensional realistic look if you're making sure your shadow areas are nice and dark and then blend nicely into your highlighted areas. So this does take a lot of time and patience, just going over the top of all your layers, as well as darkening it, it adds the fur texture as well. Now I'm going to bring the dark sepia over the lighter area, but I'm not going to use much pressure at all. I just want a light cover of it where it blends in. And I'm going over this layer again, just darkening up. Now I'm going to use a slightly harder pressure now to really blend it all together. And getting nice and dark. And get that soft look as well, so it doesn't look too sort of scratchy looking. We want that nice sleek fur texture. I'm making sure I leave this little white part by here, where her little blaze goes into sort of a snip on her nose. I want to make sure my strokes are really short as well, because her coat is very short, sleek coat. I don't want it to look like she has a long coat or is fluffy or anything like that. So now I'm going to go down into this area, and I'm going to use a coal grey 6. I'm just going to sharpen it. Just to add a little bit of a blue undertone. And I'm always making sure I'm checking back at my reference. Sort of judging how much to add and what I can see. So I'm just going to bring it down. And now I'm going to follow up sort of where I need to leave the white space. I haven't drawn in where the blaze is. I don't tend to draw in all the details, just the basic sort of areas. And then there's the highlight by here of the nostril. So I'm just going to mark where I need to leave the lighter area. And then this is the really dark area. So I'm just going to shade it in just to mark it in. This will get a lot darker when I get around to it. I'm sort of mapping out at the moment. That goes from there, and then there's like the little wrinkle dent by there. So I'm just going to leave that now. I don't want to work on this section because then when I come over, my hand's going to be on it. So it's just mapping it out. And I'm going to work sort of down here. Now I'm probably going to leave this section and work down here. So I've just mapped that. I've just brought this down and sort of mapped out little areas by here. And now I'm probably going to work, no actually, I think I might work on this section and then work my way across and then come down. I never sort of plan out what way I'm going to do. It sort of comes as I'm drawing. So I'm going to use, I need a cold grey for this part. This part is a little bit lighter. I think I'm going to try and find a cold grey 3. All my cold greys have started running out. I need to do a new pencil order. So I think I'm going to do the cold grey 2, so I'm just going to sharpen it. I'm going to get my putty eraser and just lift off some of the graphite. I've sort of just marked out there where the little wrinkles in the mouth were, just so I knew I could like sort of guess for the distance. So if I knew the wrinkles were by here, I knew how far up this needed to be. And sort of like just making little reference points. So I'm just going to do a layer of this on this section. You can see lightly a graphite line by there, where I've told myself, right, this bit is a shadowy bit. So it's where the light section stops. Now I'm not going to cover the whole muzzle in this coal grey because this is the only light section. It comes just about there. Just I'll go over it once more, make sure it's nice and even. And blend it into this area too. Now it goes up, and this section is light as well. I'm just going to blend it in. Now I'm going to use a cold grey. I'm going to use the cold grey 5. I'm going to sharpen it. So I'm going to look for all the darker sections. So it follows this dark line down and then comes around here, and then we have the wrinkles. So I'm just going to mark in where those little wrinkles are. And then this section is dark. I'll probably go over the top with the warm grey as well, just to tone down a bit of the blue and add a bit more shadow. So in the darker areas I'm using a little more pressure, and instead of using the fur texture method of like strokes and flicks, I'm using a circular motion to really blend all these colours together and get it looking nice and soft. I'm going to use my sepia pencil just to extend this area down here, because I can just see it needs to be a little darker. And this line back here needs to be a little darker too. Now I'll go back in. I'm going to use the cold grey 6, so it is quite dark by here. I'm just darkening where those little wrinkles are. I haven't gone into too much detail yet on that area. It's all about sort of plotting your way and then building up your layers and then going into detail. That's my sort of method. It's back on my cold grey 5, and I'm just going to use it lightly now. So I'm not sure how dark to go just yet. So I'm using it very lightly in sort of that circular motion. And I'm going quite slow now, making sure that the pencil gets right into the tuss of the paper. So sort of going over and over. I'm going to use the cold grey 2 just to start blending these into each other now. You can see I'm still using the circular motion and a little harder pressure, and you can see the colours starting to blend together then. I'm going to focus on this part. So I'm just going to add a little more coal grade 2 up here, and a little more pressure, just to really get that colour down. And now the coal grey 5. It's really dark around the edge of the lip, but I don't want to go too dark too soon. I'm just going to lightly add some of this now. And always around the edge of the lip you'll have the little highlight as well, so I'm making sure I leave room for that. So I'm just lightly adding a layer of this. Just marking out where that dark section is there around the nostril. And as I get up to this lighter area, I'm sort of using a lighter pressure then, just to blend it into that part. I'm going to work on the lip underneath, sort of finish that lip, and then I'll know how dark up here to go. So the lip is very dark, so I'm going to go in first with a coal grey 6. I'm going to sharpen it. And I'm still looking very carefully at my reference to see exactly where the dark parts are. Now just adding a layer of this coal grey 6, following the shape of the mouth. So that's one layer down, and I'm just going to work over the top and do another layer. I'm going to put my pencil in a pencil extender a moment, just because it was getting quite short, and I'm going to sharpen it again. So you can see how messy the base layers look again. It's always like it when you start, but don't let it put you off. You have to go through the sort of messy, weird stage to get to the good stage. I'm using a harder pressure, not really hard, but just hard enough to sort of blend it into the tooth of the paper now. So I got that layer down. I'm going to use the dark sepia now. So I'm going to use this sort of a little hard as well, just to really get it nice and black. making sure my edge is nice and clean as well. And then sort of blend it into the inner part of the lip. So again, I'm still using the circular motion as well. Using the circular motion gets everything nice and soft and blended together. So I'm going to go with the Cold Grey 6 again now. I'm just going to darken this area. Actually, I'm just going to use the Cold Grey 2. Just go over this sort of highlighted area so that I can bring the Cold 6 blended into it. Now I'm sort of looking at the direction of the wrinkles on the muzzle, on the sort of lips area. I'm following that. And I'm going to bring it lightly over this highlighted area as well. I'm just marking in where that nostril sort of starts and finishes. There. And it's very dark down here. I'm just going to add a little bit of the Cold Grey 6. Just to sort of map out. I'm just going to keep blending this area until it looks nice and soft. Blend this up. Now I think I'm going to use a little bit of Payne's Grey just to add sort of that darker blue, and then I'll go over the top with the sepia. There you go. And now I'll use the sepia pencil. So where the darker parts are, I am going to press hard, and then as it gets into the lighter areas, I'll do a light pressure. I'm just looking at the little shapes on the lip now and sort of replicating them. So it's quite bumpy. Just further going along and darkening this. Now I'm going to go back in with the Cold Grey 6. So as it gets up to the top of the muzzle, it starts getting a little lighter. There's not much to explain at the moment, it's sort of just blending upwards, making sure I'm getting the tones right, adding in little details that I can see, like the wrinkles in the lips, making sure it's nice and blended. I'm going to blend this upwards. I'm going to darken this highlight a little as well now. It's not that bright. So I'll tone it down a bit. And I'm going to use a Pablo pencil. This is the steel grey, and I think it's going to work well for this lighter area. And then I might use the darker one. I think it's just called grey. Just going to add this by here. And then yep, this Pablo. This is the grey Pablo. I'm just going to sharpen it. There we go, and I'm just going to add this over the top now and into the highlights of those little wrinkles. Only a light layer of it. And then go back in with the Cold Grey 6 and just work over the top. I'm working lightly over this area, just to tone it down slightly. I'm really working into the tusk of the paper here. So it's nice and covered, soft and even as well. Now this area is very dark on up here. I think I'll use the Cold Grey 5 to start off with. So this area is lighter. So I'm just going to mark where it sort of starts and finishes. So I'm just going to lightly add this down now. And as I come into the lighter layers, I'm just going to blend it in very, very lightly, and as I come out, use a little more pressure. I'm also going to make sure it sort of curves across for the shape of the nostril as well. So again, I'm using that circular motion. I'm only using this pencil very lightly. So just looking at the nostril and where the darker areas are. What I'm going to do is use the Cold Grey 2 and add it here so I can blend it in. So I'm just going to erase in the graphite. And I'm going to add it very lightly. And add it lightly here just to blend these two areas together. And now going with the Cold Grey 5 again. So I'm just copying what I can see in my reference. I'm only going to add this lightly because I want to get it nice and dark when I go in my sepia, and I'm just going to blend it into the lighter area of the nostril. I'm going to use the Cold Grey 6 now. and start darkening. I always take my time when I'm doing dark into lighter areas. It is quite a long process. I'm constantly looking at my reference and looking at all the different tones I can see, all the different textures. So you can see it still looks very messy and not smooth and like a muzzle yet, but it's all about building it up. So I'm just going to bring this across now. So there's a darker area in the sort of edge of the muzzle here. Just bringing that up. Now I'll use the dark sepia lightly, just to start darkening a little. Again, using the circular motion. I'm not using hard pressure at all. I want to work lightly and then just build up. So I'm just looking at my dark tones and making sure I'm building them up dark enough. I'm sort of just trusting myself that it's all going to blend together and come together nicely at the end. Because it is frustrating sometimes when you get to like really messy stages and like, oh, it looks nothing like what it needs to look like. But it's important you don't give up and you keep pushing through these stages and knowing that you're nowhere near finished yet. So you just gotta keep going. And just draw where you can see and keep going until you get there. And go to my coal grey 6 and start blending this area. And if you do feel overwhelmed and you feel like it's going wrong, always take a break, step back from it and go and have a cup of tea, and let your eyes sort of like refresh, because when you come back to it you'll see it differently as well. I think it's important to take breaks. Now that I've started adding in darker areas, I can see how light these areas are and know that they need to be brought back down. So I'm just going to go over it now with the Cold Grey 6. So I'm sort of just blending these two sections together now. Now I'm going over my sepia again and further darkening. I may even end up using some of the black in the muzzle as well, the black pencil. And the Cold Grey 6. So I'm constantly going back and forth and blending all the colours together. And darken up here as well. It sort of comes down as like a triangle shape, but there's still lots of like subtle different tones. Now I am using that like flicking motion just to try and get the curve sort of shape of the nose. So you can see it's still very messy sort of looking, but we will get there eventually. You can really see how long these portraits take now, and how much patience you need for them as well. Especially with black, they take a lot of time. I'm just going to sharpen the pencil. So we're using a harder pressure now, just gets really rich black coming through. Where's the edge of the nostril? And then as I get further inward, I'm using a lighter pressure. I'm just going to start sketching out where the dark areas are. Just so I can focus a little better and judge how thick this area needs to be as well. There you go, just so my eye can sort of judge things better. Now I'm also going to use the warm grey 6 just to blend this section together as well. I'm going to use it lightly with the circular motion. And then use it to blend the darker area into the lighter area here. And I'm going to use the cold grey. So I'm just going back and forth with my pencils just to blend it all together. Again, using circular motion, blending them all nicely. I'm not using hard pressure right now, I'm still using a light pressure. So this is more like burnishing now. So when I've sort of finished an area, I want all the colours to blend nicely. And especially if I'm trying to get a smooth area, trying to blend all the strokes so you can't see much of the pencil lines. And sometimes you can start blending the opposite direction to where you were going. So it all blends nice and soft. And I usually use a mid-tone to blend them. And then sometimes I'll go over with a highlight as well, which I probably will do here. So I'm going to use the cold grey too and just sharpen it. Just to blend the light areas. I find using a lighter colour over the top really helps to blend them together as well. It's starting to look softer now. And I'm going to use this to blend these areas and use as a little bit of a base layer for this nostril. So I'm just going to take a quick break. Like I say, breaks are really important. You want to make sure your eyes adjust. I did have problems with my eyes before where I'd work long periods of time and not give my eyes a break. So I'm just going to take a little break and then I'll be back and we'll finish this section as well. And I am now back from my break. So we're going to work on the nostril now. So I'm just going to start with my dark sepia pencil and I'm going to look at where all the darker areas are and just start lightly adding them in with my dark sepia. So just lightly shade in. I don't want to go too dark too soon. I think that's like one of my mottos I always say in all my videos is don't go too dark too soon. So you can see this area by here is lighter, and this is sort of where that part comes out of the nostril. I'm not sure what these parts are called or how to refer to them, but after drawing horses' muzzles for so long, I sort of, even if I've got a bad reference or I can't see much detail, I'll know how the nostrils look just from drawing them so often. So you always have like the circular part coming out from the nostril and you have all the little bits on the inside. So I'm sort of just doing what I always do when I start a section, and that's sort of mapping out where the light tones and dark tones are. I'm going to use a coal grey. So there's a section up here that comes out with the nostril, this section down here, and that's sort of the edge for there. And then it comes up and there's like a little curve. So I'm just shading in roughly where all the darker tones are. Looking at the shapes that I can see. So it's easy to sort of, it's easier if you break it down and sort of look at all the different shapes and tones. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to work on this little bit and I just want to blend it out. We don't want a harsh line because muzzles are nice and soft, not sort of like a thin harsh part. So I just want to blend it now, make it look soft and rounded. Sorry if you can hear all the noisy traffic outside. Unfortunately, I live right by a main road, and the traffic can be pretty noisy sometimes. So again, I'm using circular motion just to blend it all nice, get it looking nice and smooth. And you can see on this area it's still not finished. There's still a bit of white of the paper showing through and it doesn't look quite smooth. But I'm going to go back to that area once I've done this muzzle area as well. Just going to sharpen this pencil. So I do tend to sort of go back and forth and add in and adjust in parts as I go. And so there's no way for me to sort of explain how I work in that sense. It's sort of just, I figure things out as I go. I think I have like a slightly different process for each portrait. All depends on what I'm drawing. So I'm going to go back to the dark sepia again and further darken inside here. Just going to use the cold grey. I'm going to use the cold grey 5 just to blend this area out. There is a very light sort of highlight by here, but not too obvious. So I don't want to make it too harsh. And there's a darker sort of section here. So I'm making sure when the dark goes to the light it's nice and blended and there's not a sharp line. I'm going to go back with the cold grey 5. Where have I just put that? Put there. And this sort of like bumps over in this direction, so I'm just going to shade in sort of that kind of motion. I'm going to use the cold grey 6 and just darken where I can see the dark areas. So it is sort of like a lighter area by here. And then back with my dark sepia and start darkening down this area. I may even go in with the black just to further darken, but we'll see. I'm going to use a Corbray too, just to lighten this bit and sort of blend it, and then also use it around the edge here. I'm also going to use it up here as well. It isn't that light, but I just want to use it as a base layer. And then go over the top. I'm also going to darken this a little further. And just blend it a bit more. And I'll go with the Corbray 6 and start darkening this section now. And now we want this to blend into the muzzle, so I'm just going to work on that. So I'll go with my dark sepia and start bringing it into that area. Just going to sharpen it. So I'm just going back and forth my pencils and slowly darkening on what shapes I can see. So again, using the same technique that I've been using throughout, and when I want the darker areas, I'm using harder pressure, and as I get to the lighter areas, I'm using a lighter pressure, so you get that nice tone. I'm using the circular motion to really blend it all. Just going to sharpen this pencil. So if there's anything that I'm doing in this video and you're not quite sure what it is that I'm doing, or you want me to explain, or I haven't really explained well enough, do pop a comment below. I'm trying to make sure I explain everything that I'm doing, but it's quite hard to know if I'm explaining it properly and people are understanding. So if there is something you're not quite sure, do let me know and I will get straight back to you. So now I've got these layers down, I'm just going to use a lighter colour just to blend the light layer nice and softly. So that's coming along now. I'm just going to add a little more sepia down here. And in here as well. And I'm going to work my way down, so I'm going to use a warm grey 6 to work underneath. It is very dark, but I don't want to go too dark too soon. I said it again. I wonder if we could one day count how many times I say don't go too dark too soon in every video. But it is true. You're going to make sure you build up your layers so you get the depth. And I'm overlapping this warm grey into my previous layers so that it blends nicely. And there is a little highlight bit here, so I'm going to use my cold grey too, just to add that in. And then I can work over the top and it'll still stay light. It's only a very, I'm not sure if it's her markings or if it's a little bit of a highlight, but I'm going to add it in anyway. She could have like a little white snip by here. Now this area is a little light. The reference is a little fuzzy, so I can't tell if this sort of comes around a bit thicker. I think it does. So I'm just gonna draw sort of where it's lighter. I'm just gonna use the coral grey to lighten it a little. It's only ever so slightly, but because the reference at the bottom is a little pixely and dark, so I can't really see very well where it starts and ends. So I'm sort of just going to guess. Use the coral grey 5. No, actually I am going to use the coral grey 2 first, just in case we go too dark. And then the coral grey 5. And I'm also going to lighten this black line by here. I don't know why I've gone that dark. So I'm just using the mono eraser just to lighten it a little. And then use the Coal Grey 6. Just to softly shade this out. And add it here as well. So I'm trying to use my own knowledge of horses here and thinking how the nostrils and muzzles look. And I do know it comes out quite far by here. So that's where having your own knowledge of horses helps when drawing horse portraits, and understanding the anatomy and how they look. So I think it benefits me a lot, having a good knowledge of horses myself when drawing these portraits. I think having my own black horse helps as well, so I'm knowing what the different tones are like on a black horse. So now I'm going to go in with a dark sepia, just going to sharpen it. And start working dark up to light. I'm using small circular motions to really make sure this pencil gets into the tusk of the paper now and gets a nice smooth rich colour. And leaving out that little highlight there. I'm just blending it over. This needs to be a lot smaller, the highlight. So, and then use Coal Grey 5, I think, just to go over the top of it. I'm going to use the Warm Grey 6 again for this layer. Making sure it blends over these sections as well. Now I'm leaving this section white because that's the little snip that she's got. So I'm just bringing up this warm grey layer. Just to about here. But then I'm going to use a cold grey down that section. So now as a choice, do I finish this section or that section? I think I might work my way up and then meet in the middle. Just so I can get this little bottom section done. So I'm going to use the warm grey and then I'm going to use the sepia. So now I'm with the sepia and getting nice and dark. as I'm bringing it up, I'm getting lighter as well with my pressure, because it does get to a lighter area. And just blending over this nostril as well. I'm going to use coal grey just to darken a little bit here. So I'm going to use this coal grey 5 just to meet into this layer now. So I'm just going to shade it down. And then use my coal grey 6. So I'm just starting to blend all the sections together now. I'm sort of following the curve of the nose as well when I'm shading in. And I want to make sure this blends nicely as well. I don't want it to look harsh, I want it to look part of the nose. So what I'm going to do is sort of use that curve and then blend it up. I'm just going to sharpen the pencil and do another layer of this coal grey now. I'm using sort of a medium pressure. I don't want to go too hard because I do want to go over the top with the dark sepia as well. So now in with the dark sepia. I'm using it lightly first. really looking at my reference and studying where the darker tones are now. And start blending this area down as well. So I'm keeping the fur texture up on this section, so I'm going back to the flicking technique. I'm following the shape of the face. And just blending this area out. So as I'm getting to the bottom of the nose where it's nice and velvety, I'm using the circular motion, and then as I get up to the fur, I'm using the flicking motion like this. So we get the different textures going on. And as I'm getting to the lighter areas again, I'm still using the lighter pressure. Now I just want to further darken this section. This is where I'm starting to blend it now, make it look nice and soft. I'm going with my coal grey 6. I'm still using a harder pressure now, making sure it's all into the tooth of the paper, nice and blended and soft. And using the circular motion as well. Now that I've added the darker section around, I can see inside the muzzle, inside the nostril, it does need to be darker. I'm going to use a Payne's grey just to go over the top right here. And further in up there and down here. And to blend this area together as well. And then go back over with the sepia. just going to add a little bit of the coal grey now over this area because we don't want it that light. So I'm going to tone it down a little. Now we're going to move on to this section. I'm going to use this coal grey 6 still because it's a very dark area, but I want some of the bluish tones underneath as well. So I'm just going to add this in. And leave that little highlight. I think I'm going to use a warm grey for that. Use warm grey 3 just to add in that highlight where it's the edge of the nostril. Just below. I'm just going to darken this outer corner and then go in with the sepia. And add some sepia up here. Sort of blend over the top of that highlight very lightly as well. Just going to sharpen it. Now there is a little bit of light there, so I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to bring this area down with the sepia. I'm just going to use a little bit of Payne's grey, just to get a bit of blue tone under by here. And then once we've done this section, we will continue to work on the snip on her nose. I'm just going to blend that together with the coal grey 6. So I'm just going to go over the top now with a medium pressure and get this all nice and blended. Coming over that little highlight. I'm just going to sharpen this area by here. Just making sure everything's nice and blended. I'm going to add a bit more in this section, just to further darken a little bit. And now it is looking quite flat and not much texture to it. So what I am going to do is get a coal grade 2, is sharp. I'm just going to add a little bit on top, just to add a bit of texture to the muzzle. Just so it doesn't look so flat. So just adding in a few little flicks here and there. And then this light little bit there, and just blend that in. And grab that warm grey and just define that little highlight there, and add a little warm grey up here. And I'm going to use this coal grey in the snip as well. Now I've done this snip quite thick, it's not actually that thick, so I'm going to go back in with the other colours in a moment. So I'm just going to add a line of the coal grey, like that, and go in with the coal grey 6 first, and just start to thin the little snip. It's almost invisible, not invisible, almost sort of disappears, but there. I'm going to just shade across. Now we use the coal grey 5 just to blend it in. Go. And now just going to use the coal grey 2 again, just to lighten a few little areas. Just add a bit of texture in. Just going to lighten that highlight. Lighten around here. And now I am going to go in with my black pencil. So I'm going to add a bit of black in here, just to get the really rich tones. It looks quite dark on camera, so I can't tell if you can see it add in the dark tones, but when you see the final image you'll see where the different tones are. It's hard to capture them on camera. I do need to upgrade my camera so you can see the details and colours better. So these tutorials will get better soon, but you all got to start somewhere, haven't you? Starting to get a little more depth to it now as well. What we do need to do now is add in a few little whiskers that I can see. I'm just going to add in some of the little wrinkles around the mouth as well. So for the whiskers, I'm going to use my slice tool as always. So this is the pen knife. There's only 3 whiskers that I can see, and there is one around here. So I'm just going to go over that a little. So there's one, and they're only very light. I don't want bright white whiskers. And there is one there. Actually there's 4, I can just see a tiny one. So there's one there, and there's one little one there. And I think this section is just really dark so you can't see, so I'm just going to add a few where I think they should be. A few little ones. One there. And now what I'm going to do is, with the cold grey 2, have it nice and sharp. And just go over them. Now I'm going to go in my dark sepia. I'm just going to darken this section. So now it's almost finished, so I'm just going to be going sort of back and forth, making sure everything is exactly right. And then I'll probably have like a little break again, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes to see if there's anything that stands out that needs to be like darkened or altered or added or anything like that before I say it's finished. Just going to darken that area a little. Tone down this whisker, it's a little too bright. Here we go. Just gonna shade this area a little bit. It looks a little too flat for my liking. So there we go, that here is how I draw muzzles. I hope you all enjoyed and I hope it has helped you. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below or send me a message and I'll be happy to help with any muzzles that you might be drawing or stuck on, or if you're struggling with black fur or anything else. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!